You have reached Congregation B'nai Israel, a center of Jewish life, located in Millburn, New Jersey. Thank you for your call. We appreciate your patience as we are currently assisting other congregants. Please note that our typical office hours are Monday through Thursday, 9:30 a.m. until 4 o'clock p.m., and Friday, 9 o'clock a.m. until 2 o'clock p.m. These hours are subject to change on holidays and other observances. Please check our website calendar at www.cbi-nj.org for updated information.
morning.
Good morning. Little difficulty getting on, but so far so good. Hi, Amy.
I don't know why we are recording. So no
I
problem.
noticed that I think Lens were recorded, and I don't know if the cantor just routinely records it, or maybe it's because she isn't here. I don't know.
No, I actually was talking to Amanda because when I signed on, we were already recording. And she said, "Is that a problem?" I'm like, "No, that's a fabulous thing you did." So it automatically records at Monday Morning Modules.
Oh, okay.
So now, do you want to be able to control anything, or do you not care?
No, that's too much to think about.
Okay, then I'll just call Amy, so just in case. If my computer has a problem, it'll automatically go to her, and then we're still good.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
All righty. We'll see who shows up and what happens.
Yes, we will. I do not know why I have a message. Oh, I know. I didn't wipe it off. That's all. And I'm back to, I will be crocheting.
No problem.
Yeah.
Problem.
It's getting there. It is getting there.
It eventually does.
I just would like it to be another 2 rows, and then I'll be getting there further.
Excuse me. I'll be right back.
God bless you. Asher, honey, you need to be quiet. I see Lily's on.
Yeah. Hi, Lily. Did you hear about that awful stuff at OHEB?
Uh-huh.
Oh, my goodness.
Unbelievable. And you know, not that it changes how horrific it is, but today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and it makes it doubly bad.
What's at OHIB? I didn't hear.
They had a very bad incident.
There was a speaker who was, I think, IDF.
Yeah.
And there was a demonstration, as you know, South Orange, Maplewood, they're very active. So there was a demonstration in front of the property. However, they went on the property and painted something that says, I think it's terrorists this way. So if you look at
during school drop off and pick up.
It's remarkable. In TAP, not our TAP, but their TAP, there's a statement by both
Rabbi
mayors of Maplewood and South Orange.
Oh.
and it's being investigated as a bias crime because they can't stop the demonstration. If you're on the sidewalk outside, you can make noise. That's First
But-
Amendment.
But once you walk on private
They
property,
went on the property
you're
and
prosecutable.
defaced private property. So it's troubling that it's so close to us. And they must be. I don't know where speakers are announced. I mean, we don't announce our speakers in a public forum, and I'm going to say it might be better not to.
Yeah, I've been upset that we have not. And now I'm rethinking my feeling about that as well.
Yeah, it might be better not to because I think sometimes the less people know about what's going on in your building, the better it might be in
Yeah.
these times.
It's a shame because we want to do publicity. We want people
Well,
to come
that's-
outside
yeah.
of our little synagogue and
Bubble.
out of a little bubble and it's not so close. It's here. If it's in
Yeah.
Elhab, it's here. It's not.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a different place. It's
Whoever their organized anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist activists are, they're very busy there in South Orange, Maplewood. They are very busy.
No, my friend's son was looking to move to South Orange, Maplewood area, and I said to them, just be aware that it has issues there. And that's where Gary lives. I mean,
Yeah.
The participants in the protest at the Green Door were also a lot from Maplewood.
Well, they tried to be at a Milburn Board of Ed for a meeting, but they were.
Is that the same group?
They were. I forget what they're called. Soma something. They were prevented from speaking. I mean, Milburn
Because
people
they
knew
weren't
they were coming.
residents. Because they weren't residents.
Right. You have no business at our Board of Ed to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
So Sarah, it's 9:31.
It's up to you.
It's up to you.
We have a minion, I think. Yes?
You do.
Oh,
I'll give it another minute and then I'll start.
Okie dokie.
Good morning, Moles.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Good
Good.
morning, Specter and Houseman. And good morning, Leslie.
Hey, Sarah. Good morning.
Hi. So I don't have to ask if anybody read the book because you all have. Isn't that nice?
True.
Not one of those
I
times.
had to think about that, but yes,
You've read the book.
many times.
Yeah,
Every-
exactly. Yeah, annually. You just
Keep reading.
It's on the bestseller list.
absolutely.
Yeah.
what are you doing today, Miriam or Ruth?
Miriam.
Miriam, I've done Ruth.
I know you have.
I've done Ruth. Yeah.
Two
I know who I
sets
would
of
like to do.
Miriam.
I have to tell the cantor.
I
Uh,
said, good morning.
Hi.
Sarah.
More
How are
people.
you?
Morning. Hi,
Hi,
Jill.
how are you? I'll give you the heads up whenever you're ready, you can start.
Oh, we've already talked about it, Wendy.
Okay.
I was just waiting for a couple of people to arrive, and guess what? You did.
I
You did.
was so well planned this morning until I started to do something and just lost track of
That's
time
okay.
as usual.
It happens.
Okey-dokey.
Okay.
Time runs away.
So Karen is running the show. I
Oh,
have
boy.
no technical control, and that's fine with me.
It would be
So-
nice if everybody stayed muted, but just unmute yourself when you wanna. It's up to Sarah how she wants to handle questions or comments, so. But it would be nice if everybody stayed muted. If you have If you forget after you've unmuted, I will do that for you. It's not a problem. Amy can do it, I can do it, and Sarah will be thankful.
Fine. What I'd like to do is at certain moments kind of stop and say, I'd like to hear from you because this is not a lecture. So I'll do that, and then we can hear from you. So that should work, right, Karen? Okay. So I will start. First of all, my thanks to the cantor for asking me to do this. And in fact, she suggested Miriam. A subject that I love to talk about. And I'm sorry she's not here today, but we hope she's getting some restful time off. So she'll be here next week for the second session. So many years ago, I was asked to give a Devar Torah at Sisterhood Shabbat when we were doing Beshalach. And I'd like to read the first paragraph of my drash because actually it serves as an introduction to some of my discussion today. So this is what I wrote and said then. Since I read my first children's Bible many years ago, I have been drawn to the woman who is my second favorite, Miriam. I admire her courage, outspokenness, spirit, and joy. She is a loyal sister and daughter. She is a leader in the community. However, like many women, I have wondered at the gaps in the narrative about Miriam, the anonymous girl who saves her baby brother by boldly addressing Pharaoh's daughter and offering to find a nurse, does not have a name until Parshat Beshalach. She is the first individual in the Torah to be identified as a prophet, but we do not know how she achieved this status. There are other questions. Does she sing the entire song at the sea? Did she write it, as has been suggested? Clearly, she is a leader among the Israelites, not solely because she is the sister of Aaron and Moses. But the story leaves me wanting to know much more. So I wrote that a long time ago, dug it up when I was starting to research this. And it brought me back to pretty much the same question I was asking at that time about the either silence or absence or treatment of women in the Torah. And just as then, I started researching writers who have the same interest and curiosity. So these narrative gaps, as they're frequently referred to, are the spaces we want to fill with stories that have meaning for us. And as I said in that drash, Midrash can help us with that. So I'm sure you're all familiar with Judith Plasko, who wrote Standing Again at Sinai. And I have referred to her work many times. She wrote this: "We seek the history of Jewish women out of our need for a Jewish community in which women are present." Now, she writes that the most striking examples of women's silence come from the texts in which women are the central characters, which I think is true of Miriam's story. Dr. Vanessa Oakes says we have to read between the lines to fill the narrative gaps. And that's what Midrash allows us to do. So unlike the matriarchs, Miriam's role is not biological. She doesn't have babies. She doesn't, although we'll get to the issue of whether or not she's a midwife, but she delivers a nation. Miriam is never referred to as a wife or mother. And there seems to be some, what's the word I want to use? Differences of opinion on who her husband might have been. What I read that it was Caleb, and then I read that it was not. So, but we don't need to identify Miriam in relation to her husband. She is identified as a sister and the first woman to bear the title prophet. Her actions ensure the survival of the Jewish people. So what I want to look at in our two sessions together is Miriam's role from her introduction in the second chapter of Exodus, the anonymous sister, all the way through. I'm going to break. We'll start talking about the Song at the Sea and Beshala, but I'm not going to end there. Next week, I'm going to pick up there again because there's something else I want to do with that. And then I'm going to go through to the leprosy, her death, and her legacy. So that's how I'm going to break it up. So if you have comments to make or anything like that, just bear in mind that that's, and I have a hard stop at 10:30 because I have to go teach an English class at the library. So, so one of my favorite resources is the late Professor Tikva Frymer-Kensky. And I have used her book, Reading the Women of the Bible, many times. If you've never looked at it, I would recommend it. She writes about 4 types of women in the Bible that she breaks down into victors, victims, virgins, and voices. She says she likes alliteration. So she places the women of the Exodus in the category of victors. She says they come from different niches in society. They are united by the fact that they appear on the scene to act powerfully to affect Israel's destiny. And she quotes the Midrashic proverb, because of the righteous women of that generation, Israel was redeemed from Egypt. So I'm going to stop for a moment just to ask if there are any other points of view that some of you may have on the character of Miriam. Other than what I have said, because I'm just going broad. I'm about to get into Exodus chapter 2. So any thoughts on Miriam before we begin? And as I said earlier, we've all read the book, so we all know Miriam. Leslie, did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, I've read the book. I think just in general, also one reason why I'm really interested in these 2 sessions is because I think even though I may be younger than some other people here, I think I've gotten a little cynical, and I want to take a fresh look at Miriam, and really, try to understand from other people who have written books or other researchers together perspectives, because sometimes I get a little like, oh, okay, and here's Miriam kind of thing. So I'd like just a broader understanding, because I've gotten a little cynical. I think not just with women in the Torah, but just like more of the Torah in general. So I want to kind of like, open myself up to learning more about, especially the Jewish women in the Torah. So that's kind of like where I'm at right now.
So, and I have turned to, and the women I have mentioned are considered Jewish feminist scholars. I also use the Jewish Women's Archive, which has a great deal of material that I have found helpful. And then I just sort of wandered around. It was interesting trying to find material here that I noticed. I'm not using the material, but even in some Christian references, Miriam's an attractive character. Let's put it that way. The story, I think, is compelling, so people are drawn to that. Is there anybody else who wants to offer some thoughts on our Miriam? I take that as a no. Okay. All right. So we'll get into Exodus. I have my time handy. I don't know if anyone else does. I may read something at some point, but it's not really necessary, I don't think. So in Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 to 10, we learn about the baby boy who has been placed in a basket in the reeds at the bank of the Nile, watched over by his nameless sister, who seems to have a plan. Pharaoh's daughter comes to the river, finds the baby. Protective of the baby and in an audacious move, the sister offers to find a nursemaid to take care of the boy. That nursemaid, Moses' mother, takes care of him until he is taken to the palace, where he grows up. And there's some real gaps, certainly in the life of Moses also, that this whole stretch of, what happened there? But the Torah focuses on the birth of the deliverer of Israel, Moses, and disregards his two older siblings. So we don't learn Miriam's name until Exodus chapter 15. Moses is told that his brother Aaron will meet him in Exodus chapter 4, but he's just sort of there. We know the story, right? Moses says, I don't speak well, and God says, well, your brother Aaron can do this for you. And so here comes Aaron. But Aaron has a very different role than Miriam, because Aaron's a priest. And as yet, in Exodus 4, we don't even know about Miriam, really. I noticed on Shabbat when we were reading Vayera that as the clans of the Israelites are gathering to leave, and the genealogy is given, and Moses' parents are mentioned, Aaron and Moses are mentioned, Miriam is not mentioned, right? So only the men count there, and not the sister Moses. So the commentary in our time, familiar to all of us, fills in some of the narrative gaps for Miriam, her brothers, and her parents. So the Midrash offers the narrative that Moses' parents already had 2 children, we know who they are, when the decree to kill all the Israelite male children is given. Moses' parents divorce, but Miriam persuades them to remarry. And Moses is born of that remarriage. Now, the rabbis say that Amram, who is the father of Moses, Aaron, Miriam, was the outstanding scholar and leader of his generation. And he decided to divorce his wife, Yocheved, after Pharaoh's decree. However, it is Miriam who tells her father that Pharaoh decreed against males only, but that divorce decrees against both males and females. So Amram, knowing he has a smart daughter, I guess, listens to his daughter, remarries Yocheved in a public celebration, and inspires all these other Israelite husbands to do the same. I like that story, I have to say. I thought I did not, before finding this, I knew what was in the Eitz Chaim, but I did not know this, additional commentary. First of all, of the status of Amram, but also that it's Miriam who says, no, you can't divorce your wife, and you have to do it so that you are a model to all. So in the verses in Exodus, I'm going back to Tikva Freimer-Kensky. I really recommend that book, Leslie, that Reading the Women of the Bible. She observes that proactive and assertive women defy and trick Pharaoh. And while he may have allowed daughters to live, he is outsmarted by a group of daughters. So Shifra and Puah, the midwives, Moses' mother, Yocheved, Miriam, and Pharaoh's own daughter. So all of them, without conspiring, shall we say, bring about saving Moses, reuniting him with his mother, and then ensuring that he will have that role with Pharaoh's daughter, and by implication, Pharaoh as well. Another writer I encountered, Susan Reimer Torn. She writes about what she calls the confrontational face of Miriam. She notes that Miriam is sometimes referred to as Puah in disguise. Puah means lifting up the face, I have read, and that gesture is understood to be one of defiance. And that's an aspect of Miriam's character that I think is worth discussing. As you all know, I come to this as an English teacher. Anytime I analyze a character, I analyze it as I would in any work of fiction. And so I am always looking for aspects of character in the text that I can hang my hat on and discuss. And so the idea of whether or not is Miriam defiant is something that I want to talk about. Not right this moment, but this is certainly something I want to talk about. Another writer that I've turned to quite often, Phyllis Tribal, and I would recommend her. Some of her work is in the Jewish Women's Archive. There's other work she's certainly published extensively. And she points out that the actions of these women in Exodus, again, defy authority, break the ties of a daughter to her father, cross lines, transcend political differences, but that the Exodus originates with these women, and that it is Miriam who is the thread who provides the continuity between the beginning and the end of the story. And she leads, as we know, she leads the Israelites in the Song at the Sea. Then Miriam is not in the narrative again, although Aaron joins his brother Moses to approach Pharaoh until Exodus 15. And no longer anonymous, she is referred to as the prophetess and Aaron's sister. And she's the first woman in the Bible to bear that title, which I mentioned earlier. Now, I have read that she is identified as Aaron's sister because that's the oldest brother. And that was the way you were identified. You're the sister of the oldest brother. Okay, so that makes sense to me. But how do we know she was a prophet? And, you know, there's Midrash that says Miriam prophesied the birth of her brother Moses. So we know there's something out there. But when I wrote the Devar Torah on Beshala, I also struggled with the character of Deborah in the Haftorah for Beshala. How do we, you know, what, again, gaps. How do we know what these people did or what they did? Deborah was a judge. Oh, really? Do I have any additional information on that? And actually we don't. So again, we have to fill in the gaps if we are looking for this. And a lot of modern scholarship does that. Someone else I read, pardon me, Madison Siegel. And she says that in this instance of female leadership in the Song at the Sea, this is very significant because only 10 songs are mentioned in the Torah. Len, is that right? That's in your wheelhouse. And that it is important that a woman is leading the Jews in song, in other words, leading them in prayer, a nod to Cantor Wallach. And for some people, and I was looking at some of this even a little earlier today, the Song of the Sea, is the entire song Miriam's song? Or does she just get those couple of lines at the end when she's dancing? Now here's a thought. Yeah, what do you think? I know what I think. I think it's the entire thing is her song. I will justify it in a moment. Anybody with thoughts on this whenever we read it? You know, if you look at the Song at the Sea, right? One might think it is Moses' song. And then we get to Miriam, and her contribution just seems to be those couple of lines. I'm opening my time. I'm going to look there. So anybody want to offer some opinions? Just speak up.
So are we
So-
looking at chapter 15? That's
Yes.
okay. So I have the old
Okay.
and he is crediting Moses with the entire composing the song and leading the people in song.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yep. So then Moses, I have a time. So then Moses and the Israelites sang the song to the Lord. Okay, well, the Israelites do include Miriam, right? And they said, I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. Okay, then praise of God, right? The Lord is my strength and might. He's my deliverance. They are prayerful and thankful for their deliverance in this miracle at the sea. And then there's the aspect of it also being a victory song of a kind, right? Which was not uncommon. And I read in my research that it was not uncommon for women to come out and sing and praise in moments of victory. So we go through. I'm still in Exodus 15. And then we get to Exodus 15, verse 20. Then Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her and danced with timbrels. And Miriam chanted for them, sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. That's it for Miriam. And one wonders why she is credited sort of after the fact with the singing and dancing, but just the two lines. Is it a refrain? Is that the point? Or is she a participant in the entire song? And I see that as also as one of those examples in the Torah where we have a female character who, in this case, I wouldn't say she's being put in a minor role. On the other hand, I don't know that she's fully credited.
So Sarah,
Yeah.
I am a believer that she wrote Song at the Sea.
Me
I'm
too.
one of those. But for me, the rationale is that we talk about Moses having this impediment of speech and problem presenting himself, and Aaron has to help to present to Pharaoh. And to me, this is Miriam lifting her brother up so that he retains that majesty of Moses, even though they don't sing together, which has always been something that surprised me, that the men wouldn't have joined as Moses brought forth the Song at the Sea.
Mm-hmm.
So I am of the school that Miriam wrote the Song at the Sea. And that little bit of credit was just enough to justify that she was involved with the writing.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, if in I'm sorry, I'll go to Marion first.
You want say what you're going to say?
No, you go ahead.
I always felt that a lot of the midrash talks about the tambourines and musical instruments, and it occurred to me they're leaving Egypt. They're schlepping all this stuff. Why do they take musical instruments?
Ah, okay.
Also, that men and women didn't necessarily do things together. So if the women were dancing, the men might not dance with them.
Good point. I'm going to come back to that. Leslie?
Well, I would have hoped Miriam wrote the song. And she didn't get credit for it until the end. But I you know, I think Miriam was, as we all know, really, really important and just didn't get enough credit on the written page, but I believe she wrote the song. I do.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, I believe too. And to put it all together, it's interesting that a person who says he, is inarticulate and doesn't speak well would become a poet. And I think that also in the role of prophet implies you are a speaker. You have something to say, and you might say it in song, I think that's very important. As to Marion's comment about, we brought our timbrels, didn't leave them at home. Phyllis Tribal refers to Miriam as the inaugurator of performance and composition tradition of songs and drums and dancing in among the Israelites. It's she who started it. I've seen some pieces of art that are to be illustrative of the song at the sea, and there are only women portrayed as singing and dancing. I have not, I mean, maybe it exists someplace else. I have not seen anything of men joining them. Hi, Len.
Yeah, I just want to respond to a couple of things. Marion said that men and women didn't dance together, but there was no prohibition about mixed dancing at the time that these stories came up. That was later on. And about men and women not singing together, the prohibition about kol isha, that men cannot hear the voice of women singing, that's a prohibition where many centuries later than after these songs came about. And also, the fact that Moses had a speech impediment has nothing to do with his ability to sing. As many of us know, that even if one has brain damage in terms of the parts of the brain that are responsible for speech, yet that individual often can sing without impediment at all. It's an entirely different region of the brain that's responsible for that. And lastly, for me, the story has been supplanted by the modern midrash of Debbie Friedman's Miriam song, and for me, that's what I hear. We get to the Song of the Sea, we read it in the Torah, but I keep hearing Miriam's song, which is all about the women dancing with their timbrels and all that. That has supplanted the actual text for me when I think about this.
So, a couple of things. One is that we will hear the Debbie. You're ahead of me. We're gonna hear Debbie Friedman's "Song at the Sea" next week. I lined that up with the cantor, so it takes care of that. I also want to distinguish between whether Moses had a speech impediment or just thought he was inarticulate. That's why I chose to say inarticulate, because I don't know if he had a speech impediment, and I do know that people can sing who might have what we call a speech impediment. It's interesting, but I'll go along with the folks who would like to think that it is Miriam's song, and in my mind, I can see and hear her dancing, along with Debbie Friedman. So now we're going into my area of interest. Modern midrash is often expressed in poetry, modern poetry. And I found two poems that I want to discuss. I cannot share a screen with you. I told the cantor I would be unable to do this. However, I will make the poems available to you if you want them, if you would like to see them. And you may be familiar with at least one of them, but I found that these characterize Miriam in a way that the narrative doesn't, and I find them very interesting. So the first one, pardon me, is called Miriam, the Red Sea, and it's by the American poet Muriel Rukeyser. I don't know if you're familiar with Muriel Rukeyser. She died in 1980, and she's very famous for a poem, and I'm going to get the title wrong. I just know it. It's called it may be called the gift of being a Jew in the 20th century. Somebody, if you know the answer to this, please feel free to correct me. And I believe it is included in Reform and Reconstructionist prayer books. It is that well known. So if you want to look it up at some point, Muriel Rukeyser, she had a very interesting life, poet, writer, activist, social activist. So this is her poem. I'm going to read this, and then I want to discuss for a bit, and then I have a second poem for you as well. High above shores and times, I on the shore forever and ever, Moses, my brother, has crossed over to milk, honey, that holy land, building Jerusalem. I sing forever on the seashore. I do remember horsemen and horses, waves of passage poured into war, all poured into journey. My unseen brothers have gone over, chariots, deep seas under. I alone stand here ankle deep, and I sing until the lands sing to each other. Okay, so I think poetry is wonderful expression as midrash, to fill in these narrative gaps as we refer to them, because rather than just being narrative, poetry gives us imagery. And the imagery, I think, just the use of a word or a phrase can tell us much more. In this case, what Muriel Rukeyser is trying to say about the character of Miriam. So notice this is in the first person. And I'm wondering if you had any sense of where she is, when she is there. You know, she tells us, I alone stand here ankle deep, and I sing until the lands sing to each other. Did you hear anything in here? And again, I apologize that you're not looking at it, for the characterization of Miriam as we think about her. Any thoughts, Mary? And
Yeah, I think you get the picture of her standing there after all the Israelites have crossed over and the chariots are being thrown into the sea and the waves are crashing. It's just very visual that, you know, that the Egyptians are being drowned and she's watching.
okay, Jill has just shared with us. Is that the poem, Jill?
Yeah, if you have a laptop, you can open it on one side while we're zooming on the other.
Okay.
If you want to see the picture, it's down a little bit on the page. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I would not have been able to do that. And I can't multitask while I'm sitting here with a book in my lap and papers around me.
Definitely.
So thank you. Any other thoughts on the images in the poem? Where is she when she's saying this? Marion just sort of alluded to that. Where is she? Jill, where do you think she is?
I'm looking at it saying, you know, in a one hand, she feels like she's still at the edge of the Red Sea, like she's ankle deep. And on the other hand, it says, Moses, my brother, has crossed over to milk, honey, and the Holy Land. It's almost like that the exit from Egypt immediately entered them into this new, like, we know that that's not exactly Israel, but and in fact, he never gets to get to Israel, but it's a wonderful image of somehow that this freedom that they got to. I feel like she's watching men in their action, and that she's like the priestess here. Like, even though Aaron gets to be a priest, there's a priestessness to I sing unto the lands, until the lands sing to each other. That's all I would share at this point.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I like that image. Anybody else with some? Notice that she says, I sing forever on the seashore. I sing forever on the seashore. And that's why I see her, Jill, where you see her, forever. It's not, I don't, we're not supposed to see her having gone over to the other side. Yeah, I know she gets over to the other side, but that's not the point. The images of who she is and how she sees it. I on the shore forever and ever. Anyone else? Didn't think you'd be reading poetry at 10 o'clock in the morning, did you? With poetry, you shouldn't rush. Poetry was always interesting for me to teach because, of course, I'm not supposed to tell my students what I think, and I rather hear from you. But I like the images in this. I also recommend to you, please read the poem for which she's very famous about on being a Jew in the 20th century. So look that up as well on your own, not related to what we're talking about here. Okay, so I have another poem for you, and then we'll be able to look at both. Now, I cannot find the person who wrote this poem. Her name is Chava Rom, R-O-M-M. It is called Miriam Argues for Her Place as Prophetess. I've seen it used in, various sites and in people's lectures, and I can't find out who she is. I just can't. So sorry about that. Maybe someone else will dig deep and encounter who she is. But the poem is called Miriam Argues for Her Place as Prophetess. And in this poem, she addresses her brother Moses. So, the morning when we left you in the bulrushes, scrubbed clean and freshly swaddled in your simple basket, I knew you were too precious to abandon. And when the princess was taken by your innocence and claimed you for her own, it was no mere fate that restored you to the full breasts of your rightful mother, but your sister's cunning. You lived a stranger in the house of the oppressor. I grew among midwives, stubborn tribeswomen who spared the newborn sons in rank defiance of the Pharaoh's orders. You learned to speak for us before kings and officials. I coaxed children from the narrows into light with singing tempered by our kin laboring long in huts and brickyards. My brother, we have both been chosen. What you witness on the mountain cannot live without the miracles below. Women draw water for the journey. I have packed bells and timbrels. Let us go. Okay, so I'll just show my cards. I love this poem. I really do, for many reasons. It suits my purposes here. I don't know if I saw this out of context, what I would think. But when I found it, I said, okay, this does many things for me for what I want to say here. But whether I like it or not is irrelevant. I just want to know what you heard here. Look at the structure. She's addressing him, right? And she then makes some comparisons. You did this, I did that. You did this, I did that. And then we get to the moment where we know they're packing up to leave. And yes, Marion, they pack the bells and the timbrels. And then the phrase, let us go. So any thoughts on what you heard? Again, some wonderful images, I think. Marion.
She sees herself in parallel to Moses. What she's doing is equally important as what he's doing, because he couldn't do it without what she's doing. And it's the first time I've heard that she was acting as a midwife. because it says that she's, doing it with Malka, Shifra,
Shifra and Pua. Mhm.
right? And you can't have one without the other.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. There is no Moses without Miriam. And as I think I mentioned earlier, that sometimes she is referred to as Pua in disguise. There's some commentary on that. Was she in fact a midwife? I don't know. We're not given a lot of information there. So in the poem, she says, I grew among midwives, stubborn tribeswomen, I like that phrase, who spared the newborn sons in rank defiance of the Pharaoh's orders. And that standing up, she's she's very bold. And I think both poems convey that, which is why I wanted to use them together. She's not going to back down. She's not going to put herself in a minor role. And of course, speaking up can sometimes get a person into trouble, as we will talk about next week, when she does speak up and she pays heavily for it. Anyone else?
Just this basically to reinforce what Marion says, how important she was in his beginnings also. And she was always there for him and supported him. And the people around him also supported him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten to where he was.
Mm-hmm. So the image there is, it was no mere fate that restore you to the full breasts of your rightful mother, but your sister's cunning, which was that's not a word I would choose to use for Miriam, but it works here. And again, she said, there's no you without me, is the bottom line. It's not serendipity. It's not accident. It's not fate that put you where you are. I got you there. And we have both been chosen, she says in the last stanza. What you witness on the mountain cannot live without the miracles below. So we know she doesn't go up to the mountain, right? She does not go up to the mountain. Aaron gets to go up part way, correct? And he doesn't go all the way. She's not invited along. So her role is very much she backbench for that one. But this to me is consistent with the way I think about Miriam being outspoken, being bold, being willing to step forward and say to her little brother, you're here because of me. And then, though, in the last stanza also, reminding him what women are doing for the journey. They're not lesser people. I have packed bells and timbrels. So we get that connection. Let us go. Let us go. And she's including herself in that. Anybody else?
I want to mention that I feel like it's not sibling rivalry, but or a competition, which I like. There's a tone in the poem that makes me just feel like she's just saying, "Yeah, I have all this power and all this stuff I've learned this important part."
Mm-hmm.
There's something to me that's peaceful about, not peaceful, but just not strident. Just like, this is the things I've done, and
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's how it came off in the poem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I share that too. And I think, we'll talk a little bit next week about what might be called sibling rivalry. So when she and Aaron speak against Moses, what is that all about? And we can return to the idea of it being sibling rivalry there. But she asserts herself. That's really what's going on here. Time and time again, in the moments in which we see her in the Torah, despite the narrative gaps, when she is there, certainly she is asserting herself. So I'm going to wind down a little bit here. Judith Plasko, the way she describes our glimpses of Miriam in the gaps is that she's the woman who dares to be like a man, a prophet, who stands on the shores of the Red Sea, and this is in the poem, singing forever. Right? That's an image we want to retain. And it's in this poem that Miriam insists to her brother, we have both been chosen. What you witness cannot live without the miracles. And Judith Plasko says that Miriam challenges us to see her as a complex and very active participant in the narrative of the Exodus, that we can't just see her as the sister, who plays a lesser role. So as I said, next week, what I want to do is we're going to pick up right here. We will have some music. And then I want to discuss the consequence of challenging the authority of someone like Moses. We will get to her death, and then we're going to talk about what follows and what we see as her legacy. How put it all together? How do we view Miriam? So, anybody with any closing thoughts about, or maybe something you think I may have omitted, overlooked, not considered? Open to all discussion here. No? Karen.
Unmute. Do you think that Miriam is able to voice her opinions and put herself out front because her father looked on her favorably?
That's very interesting. I did not. And also, if her father had the status that we say we believe he did,
yeah,
right? And he has this smart daughter who offers a suggestion to him, and he takes it.
And which was very unusual for the time.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point of view there. Yeah. So does that add to her status?
Absolutely.
As prophet, because we are going to assume that began early in her life. That did not just spring up later on. Oh, I like that. Anybody else with some thoughts on her? I know I have always, one of the reasons I named my daughter Miriam is because of the biblical character. I needed an R and I needed an M, and the M was sort of a given, and it was always because I thought she was a strong and outspoken woman, and I got an outspoken daughter. So but I do find that this is one of the more interesting characters in the Torah, and I do think I'm not showing my hand on the next session when I say that. I do think that we're trying to give her due. We're trying to elevate her, if you will, or at least acknowledge the role that she played, and see her not just as the older sister, minor character, however you might want to put it. Hi, Len.
Yeah, when I look at these stories, I also hear other stories in the Bible, and what they remind me of And I also look at names and parallels in names. So we have the father here, Amram, which means kind of like Am is a people, Ram is high people. I'm Ram, and I'm comparing that to Abraham's original name, Avram, right? High father. Amram. So Avram gave birth to Isaac and Jacob, the father of the patriarchs, and then we have Amram giving birth to Aaron, to Miriam, right, and to Moses here, and I'm looking at those parallels here, and I don't think it's accidental.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. Yeah, thanks for explaining that. I hadn't thought about Avram, but yeah, definitely important. Anyone else? No? So I have said what we're doing next time. The poems are, thank you, Jill. At least one poem is accessible to us. And next week, the cantor will be back and will join us. I hope you will all be here. We'll pick up where we left off and try to reach some kind of conclusion. So thank you very much. It's my pleasure to do this.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Sarah,
Thank you,
thank
Sarah. Always interesting.
Oh,
Thank you,
wonderful.
Sarah.
On behalf of the cantor and myself, we want to thank you for this lovely presentation today.
Thank you, Wendy. Karen is in charge of the, Karen is host, so I'll defer to her
Karen.
here.
Okay.
See you next week.
See you next
Bye-bye.
week.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day,
Bye. Thank
everybody.
you.
I'm ending for all.
Thank you.